listening to the NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network, part of Sports Illustrated, giving you daily NFL Draft, Dynasty, and Devy Fantasy Football podcasts.
Class is in session. Welcome into the draft seminar presented by Sports Illustrated's NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network. I'm your host, Matt Hicks, the FF Educator, joined as always by my co-host, John Lobb, the Gridiron Scholar. And we got a fun one here. Pat Freiermuth out of Penn State. John, you fired up to talk about him?
I am, because these tight ends, they're unbelievable this year. We know the demand for a tight end in the NFL. As fantasy footballers, dynasty league players, we didn't get a lot in last year's draft. But this year, we've already looked at Kyle Pitts, we looked at Brevin Jordan, and Pat Freiermuth deserves to be in the conversation with Jordan. Our teammate at NFL Draft Bible, Brandon Lejeune, loves him. I do like him a lot after studying him in more detail this week. In high school, he was a 4-star recruit and the number 2 player in Massachusetts. He was all USA Today Massachusetts football team. But Matt, here's what I found out, and you can see this on the tape. He was a 4-year letterman in basketball. First, it was Tony Gonzalez. If you're old, he played basketball at Cal, and then now he's a Hall of Famer in the NFL. And then Antonio Gates, who he came into the NFL as basically a basketball player. He was a raw NFL talent. He sat for a year basically on the practice squad, and then he became a superstar, future Hall of Famer for the San Diego Chargers. Freiermuth has similar athletic traits. He was even the Daily News Basketball Player of the Year in 2015. My friends, 6'5", 258. He plays like a power forward at the college level. He is that now uber athletic tight end. And I like these multi-sport stars who play tight end because they usually bring something else to the dynamic. Their field, their body control, just an ineffable athletic ability that they translate to the football field. In 2018, as a true freshman, he appeared in all 13 games. Matt, he scored his career best 8 touchdowns as a freshman, and he was named Freshman All-America. So if you're looking for the young breakout star, Pat Freiermuth hits a nail on the head. He's a young star. 2019, second team All-America and team offensive MVP. He was also won the Captain's Award at the banquet for the Nittany Lions. 43 receptions, 507 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Those numbers don't look great, but Penn State is a running program. Trace McSorley was a good college quarterback, not a great college quarterback. It's not like Freiermuth was playing with Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, my friends. So 43 receptions in that Nittany Lions offense is very impressive. Now, in 2020, if you look at the raw numbers, he wasn't as good. But Penn State, I think, weren't they, Matt, 0-4 or 0-5? It was a disaster for the Nittany Lions with Sean Clifford at quarterback. But he did get the Big Ten tight end of the year. When his career was over, he had the most touchdowns in Nittany Lion history with 16, breaking Mike Gesicki's record. He finished his career with 29 straight games with a catch. And I really found this stat to be amazing. He had 19 receptions over 20 yards for the Nittany Lions. He can get open deep. Matt, I really like him more and more as I watch him this week. What did your film breakdown say?
I have him projected as a weekly starter for fantasy football purposes. And John, for a tight end, that is a good projection to have because we don't have too many weekly starters out there. You mentioned it, John. You can tell that he's comfortable using his hands. It doesn't matter whether it hits him in the chest, whether it's off target, and there were a good amount of off-target passes on his tape. That's putting it nicely here. He's going to haul in the ball. He has consistent, reliable hands, and that's really important translating to fantasy football success. Now, in contested catch situations, you referred to his basketball history, and he looks like he's playing in the post, and he's just getting a lob in there from the point guard, right? He has, the ability to just control that catch. He's got great body positioning. He goes up and gets the ball, and at times he's getting hit by 2 or 3 guys while he's catching the ball, and they're bouncing off of him. All right. Like this man, he is an animal, and that translates to his strength as well. Great contact balance. He fights to the end of plays. He scraps forward consistently, and he will just run over some defenders. So hands 85, contested catch 85. I give his strength an 83, and I give him an 80 for route running. Now, they didn't ask him to do the most, but he actually hit on times at most of the route tree. And for a guy who's 6'5", that's pretty impressive. He's got quick, sharp footwork, and I think he's a pretty crisp route runner. Now, he's got good field awareness, and he has really nice handwork that helps him create space in tight situations. But let's flip on the tape, John, and let's see some of this in action.
We are going to see some nice athletic ability here, folks.
And the film here is provided by Pat Freiermuth advocate, Brandon Lejeune, as always, on Twitter and YouTube, Devy Deep Dive. And you can see right off the bat here, look, he's got a little shake and bake to his game, man. That's not usually a phrase that we'll attribute to the tight end position, but here against Nebraska, he's showing that. And look at this scrapping and fighting to the end of the play here against Nebraska. I love when tight ends, or any player really, plays all the way to the end.
Look at this, and he just gets down at the 1-yard line. He should have had a touchdown.
He's so close, but even to be, and here, this is interesting, John. So we see him 40 yards downfield, catch a fly route, and on the next play, we see him catch a ball in the flat. And so he has a unique level of versatility to his game.
And look here, he's on a nice out wheel route against Michigan.
And look at that subtle separation there right at the end. He times it well, and he gets that touchdown. And he's going to fight here on this play against Michigan State and scrap all the way into the end zone.
Yeah, look, we have clips here. He's out on the wheel routes. That's our second one. And he's catching the ball in traffic in the middle of the field. He does have a lot of different routes. You're right. He just didn't run. No, that Nittany Lions don't throw the ball as proficiently as other programs.
And if you look at the way he moves around the field, you wouldn't believe you were looking at a 250-something pound man moving around the field. He is agile.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And he's an underrated blocker too. We haven't seen it yet, but he can put his body in and he can smack you a little bit in the run game.
Yeah, when you're talking about the big 3 tight ends, John, and you compare Freiermuth to Brevin Jordan and Kyle Pitts, Freiermuth is far and away the best blocker. But look at that strength. This is what I was talking about.
That's the Memphis Tigers, I think.
He embarrasses this man. I mean, that guy's got to get up and play the rest of the game after that.
Yeah, I think we're seeing some blocking here. Ooh, he smacked him on the second level. He identified him.
He is a reliable blocker. He's a reliable pass catcher. John, are his production metrics reliable enough for your model?
Absolutely. For the tight end position, I'm not looking for as high of benchmarks, especially because we know in the college level, they do not use the tight end as often as they can at the NFL level. 92 career receptions, 1,185 yards. And I can't emphasize it enough. Penn State is not an effective passing game. So those numbers are unbelievable. If he had played at Alabama with that core, who knows what he could have done in a program like that. 12.9 yards per reception. We talked about a Penn State record, 16 touchdowns. These numbers were very, very good, Matt. 60% catch rate, and Matt had mentioned it. The quarterbacks were off target at Penn State. 13% team aerial dominator. I think the NFL is going to like Pat Freiermuth even more than we do. Matt, it would not surprise me if he goes in the first round because of his duality ability as a blocker and a red zone threat at 6'5". And I like him a lot. The big frame, strong hands. He has the alpha mentality. And if you're a veteran scout and you've been around, and if you're someone who looked at Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, you look at this new dual athlete playing football, you're going to like this young man even more. I've now come to the point, I've done 5 dynasty drafts, so it's very interesting, these tight ends. Matt, I've come to the conclusion, I want whichever one's the best value. Obviously, you're going to pay up for Kyle Pitts. I get it. But Brevin Jordan or Pat Freiermuth, I'm comfortable with whichever one falls to the 3rd round, because then you are getting a tremendous value in dynasty leagues. Because I think both these young men could easily be in the Evan Ingram bucket for production, 50 to 70 catches, 800 yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns if they're in a prolific offense. But I like Freiermuth. Don't be surprised if he's a first-round pick to a playoff team late in the draft, but I definitely think he's off the board in the 2nd round.
All right, put those pencils down. This episode of the Draft Seminar is officially over. As always, we appreciate you listening. Please make sure to give it a like if you're watching the video and subscribe if you're listening on your favorite podcast provider. And as always, we appreciate